Hello, welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Mahua Nigudkar. I am with the School of Social Work, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. The module that we will be discussing today is Perspectives on Child and Childhood. This module is part of the paper on juvenile justice within the subject of criminology. Now, what will this module cover? Well, this module will cover the different lenses, different approaches, different ways of studying child and childhood. This module will also cover other dimensions and aspects of understanding child and childhood and will briefly touch upon the indicators of child well-being. Before we move on to this module, I hope you have read the module on child and childhood because that will give the basic introduction to understanding the child and different concepts surrounding childhood. Moving on to this module. Over the years, researchers, social scientists, social workers have looked at child and childhood in different ways, and the emphasis have been in different areas. So there is really not one single perspective or a single lens to understand child and childhood. There are different lenses, different perspectives of understanding child and childhood. They are there in the write-up which is there with this module. So, I do encourage you to read the write-up well, and I will briefly go over some of them while discussing this with you. Some of the perspectives are, one could be the lifespan approach. What is the lifespan approach? In lifespan approach, we look at childhood also in different phases. So, there is an early childhood, there is a middle childhood, there is a late childhood. And each phase has its own critical needs to be fulfilled and certain areas of priority. Now, if you look at some of the critical spurts or critical phases where there is a spurt of growth and development, it could be the earliest first 2 years of life, it could be during the adolescence phase. So, while each phase has certain critical areas and priority areas for attention, there would also be critical phases where we will need to focus on certain specific needs that is related or unique to that phase. So, for example, in adolescence, there would be certain specific needs of the young growing adolescent child where we need to focus on. If you look at the psychological perspective of studying child or childhood, then largely it would fall in the arena of self, development and growth of the personality, the psyche, the thinking, the behavior, how environment influences all of them. So, it is a lot to do with the individual, the growing child, the self, and so on and so forth. Sociological perspective looks at the child within the context of the environment. There is an understanding or there is a study of family as a social institution, interaction of the family with the environment, how the family, the larger environment, all of them shapes and influences a growing child. Anthropological perspective will focus largely on the day-to-day experiences of the child, how day-to-day growing up, how cultural nuances, how rituals and practices shapes and informs and influences our thinking and behavior. If you look at the feminist perspective, they would largely look at gender relations, inequality in society, relations between men and women, often within arenas of oppression, within arenas of hierarchy, subjugation. The focus would be how patriarchy impacts children, how patriarchy impacts girl children, patriarchy impacts children, even boys, children who may be having a different kind of a sexual, different kind of a gender identity. So, if you look at the Marxist perspective, it is within the arena of social classes, within the arena of capitalism. The legal dimension looks at laws pertaining to children, and there are a variety of laws directly, indirectly that impact children's lives. So, there would be laws that prohibit children from getting into certain behaviors before age 18. So, for let us say driving or let us say watching adult movies. So, there would be a certain bar because this is more to prevent children from getting into situations of danger. There would be other kinds of laws that focuses on priority areas of growth and development for the children. There would be certain areas that prevents children from getting into situations of abuse. So, there would be a cutoff age for child marriage. In terms of political participation, there is a certain age by which children are entitled for voting rights. Child labor, exploitative child labor, there is prohibition around it. And within the context of vulnerable children, you would have the juvenile justice system, which reaches out to children in need of care and protection. So within the legal dimension also, you will find there are different laws which focus on different aspects of the child's life. Now each one of us can decide for ourselves where is our inclination, how would we like to study the child. We can select one or the other approach, we can have an eclectic approach, we can study a bit of all the different approaches and then base our own understanding on child and childhood. This becomes very critical, especially if we are planning to work with children or we want to engage into any kind of policy level work, advocacy level work, we want to do campaigns, we want to work in the arena of laws and legislations and so on and so forth. Now moving on. So one would be the different approaches, the different lenses of studying child and childhood. The other would be other kinds of areas that are of especial importance to children. Let's say the arena of schooling and education. Very, very critical need. So schooling is not just about literacy. Education is not just about literacy. It goes beyond that. It is also about how do you guide a child to learn about the environment, to learn and imbibe skills, values, to learn and imbibe discipline, to learn and imbibe the skills of critical thinking, so that as this child grows older, this child is able to take well-informed decisions and thus starts the journey of empowerment. So school, education, learning plays a very, very critical role. Another arena that we can focus on is the child and the family. Most children, or majority of the children, we would like to believe is growing up well in their family situation. Ideally, globally across the world, even within India, it is considered that family would be one of the ideal spaces and places for the child to grow up in. It is here that the child gets the basic care, child learns about the world, child forms trusting relationships, self-confidence develops, there is an emotional security, there is somebody to back the child up. But unfortunately, all children do not grow up in very positive family places or spaces. Often within the family itself there is neglect, there is exploitation, there is abuse, and there are different kinds of violation of child rights. Sometimes family members and parents themselves do not know that they may be inadvertently abusing their own child. So family as a space also needs to be contextualized within the life of that individual children or group of children that we are working with. As I have mentioned even in the earlier model on child and childhood, it's very important to understand children in the context or the circumstances of their own lives rather than having a generalized notion of child and childhood. Of course, a basic knowledge and recognition that there are so many factors that contributes to child and childhood is very, very important. Then there are some other concepts that you may come across. So I would encourage you once again to read the write-up, look up other references, see the references that is there with this module so that you can build your own understanding and become sharper in your own thoughts and analysis. Now some of the terms that I will quickly touch upon that you will also yourself come across in your readings and literature review are words like adultism, paternalism, protectionism, and there are a lot of critiques and debates also around these terms. Now adultism, paternalism, these are all thoughts that adults know what is best for the child. So adults can decide what is best for the child. Well, in some cases where adults do have more experience, they have seen much more of the world than the child, they may be able to guide the child better. But does that mean that the child has no say in decisions governing the child's life? Well, the answer is no. So how we are going to use adultism, how we are going to use paternalism is a thought for concern, because in every situation concerning the child, adult need not know the best that there is to know, and involving the child in participation and in decision making is very, very crucial. Of course, it has to be very age appropriate. A 1-year-old child will not be able to take crucial decisions about his or her life, but a 15-year-old girl or a 17-year-old boy or a 16-and-a-half-year-old child who may be having a different gender identity definitely can work with the adult, can discuss with the adult about decision concerning that particular child or young person's future. So decision making, child's right to participation, guidance, discussion, all of this also has to be age appropriate, but we need to recognize that we have to give a scope to the child. So even a 5-year-old child definitely can be asked about the colors that the child likes, the toys that the child would like to play with. A 10-year-old child definitely can be asked the kind of programs that the child would like to watch, and of course then the adult can discuss with the child and take appropriate decisions. So for every aspect pertaining to the child's life, we adults need not take decisions arbitrarily and unilaterally. Democratic processes help everybody, especially the child. Now comes this whole concept of protectionism. So there are very many laws in India, and India does have many progressive child related laws which protect children from situations of abuse and exploitation. Now again, the debates that are surrounding the whole concept of protectionism, the whole concept of vulnerability is that do we always perceive children as weak and powerless and helpless, and they have no power, so they have no decision making facility, and we as adults have to always reach out and protect them? Well, the answer is neither yes nor a no. At either ends of the spectrum, it's difficult to take extreme positions on these situations. It is better to have a balanced view that where do we use protectionism, where will we use child's right to participation, how do we balance out between the child's need to discuss, child's need to share their thoughts and opinion, and an adult guidance and boundary and direction. So all of these words, vulnerability, adultism, paternalistic, protectionism, child's rights. Now this is one term that I would like to briefly touch upon, the child's right, that it is not obligatory, rather it is an entitlement of the child to receive the different kinds of requirements as a young individual or as a young human being in society. So adults are not merely obligated, and the child is not obligated to the adult, rather it is a mandate of the family, it is a mandate of the state, it is a mandate of the society to ensure that the youngest members of the society are well taken care of, and it is the right of the youngest members of the society to demand that they are well taken care of. Now children cannot mobilize themselves, children do not have voting rights, children cannot actively participate in the political agenda, but yes, indirectly adults can ensure that children participate in an age appropriate manner. So now I'll come to the last 2 points of this module. The last 2 points would be, how do we approach children, or how do we approach our own understanding of child and childhood. So do we look at children, or do we approach children as they are weak, helpless, they cannot think for themselves, they cannot understand anything, and so we adults have to provide for them, have to decide for them? Second way of approach, do we approach children that their here and now and their today and their present is very important. It's not just about their future. Now we move on to what is adult approach towards children are in different ways, and each one of us have to figure it out. What is our approach, or what is our take or perception or perspective on children? Because that also determines the way we view children, and then thereafter the way we work with them. Adult approach towards children also determines policies, programs, social work intervention, advocacy and campaigns that one may plan. So what really is our approach towards children? Do we view children as weak, helpless, dependent, powerless, and it is adults who will decide for them, who will plan for them, who will guide them in every which way? So that would be one way of looking at children. Do we look at children as that their here and now, that their present is very important, and not merely they are an investment for the future, that we work well with them today so that they can grow up to become productive citizens of tomorrow? Well, growing up and becoming productive citizens of tomorrow is important, but would their today not be even more critical, that their present life and their young years are well taken care of and well nurtured? Third way of looking at children, do we look at children as economically very beneficial, that they can get into child labor, they are very productive for the family, they can earn for the family? Or do we take a strong position that children at a young age are meant to be in schools or are meant to be in other learning centers and are not meant to be at workplaces? Thereafter, what would be yet another approach towards children? So, do we look at children as completely dependent on adults, passive recipients of welfare and care, or do we look at children as independent human beings, capable of thinking in an age appropriate way, capable of taking age appropriate decisions for their life? So, these are different ways in which sometimes consciously, inadvertently, unconsciously, we think about children and we think about childhood. Even at the state level, what is the political approach towards children? How does the state look at children? That will also determine the kind of investment that a state does in every child belonging to that particular state. The budgetary provisions, the resources, the way in which exploitation and abuse can be prevented, and so on and so forth. So, our approach to children guides us at different levels. It determines how we think at the individual level, at society level, at the state level, national level and global level. So, this is important for us to recognize, become aware of and read more on the subject. Now, moving on to child well-being. What is child well-being? There are several indicators of child well-being, and are our children, all of them, in a state of well-being? Unfortunately, the answer is no. So, what really would be child well-being? Child well-being would be a state where the child has those requirements that are necessary for that stage. By that I would mean adult protection, adult care and nurturance, health needs. A 2-year-old child's health needs vis-a-vis a 16-year-old child's health needs, education and learning needs, adult supervision, adult direction, state policies, state laws, state programs which are designed in a child-friendly manner and implemented effectively with commitment and with adequate budgetary allocations. So, there are different indicators of child well-being. So, a happy child, a healthy child, a child who is growing up in an atmosphere of care, a child who is going to school where the teachers care about education, learning is happening in an optimal way. And within child well-being also we need to remember that while there are certain ages and phases of a child's life and there would be certain milestones in different child's life, each individual child have their own unique needs and requirements, and there could be also exceptions to this. Hence, we really need to understand every individual child's unique needs and requirements and the larger policies and programs that are meant for every child, how well they will be able to adapt to that particular individual's child's unique needs and requirements would also help us to get an indicator of whether we are moving towards child well-being or not. Now, vulnerable. All children are vulnerable by their young age, their evolving capacities. However, there are some children where circumstances may make them more vulnerable than others. Marginalization, lack of access to resources makes these children double vulnerable and they start growing up with a life of disadvantage. And that further moves on into their adult years and there is difficulty for that young person in adult life in many such situations. So, we really require to recognize what is child vulnerability, how do we mitigate some of these situations of child vulnerability. So, in summarizing, this module focused on perspectives on child and childhood. We need to recognize that children are young human beings and they have specific needs and entitlements. We also need to recognize and emphasize that children require autonomy, require spaces for participation, require opportunities for growth, development, require freedom. In a very different way in an age appropriate way. And much of children's well-being will also depend on our own adult approach towards children. How do we seriously look at this whole aspect of a young human being's life, and whether we are doing sufficient to work towards child development, child protection, child well-being, and effective fulfillment of child rights. Understanding childhood from different lenses. There are several distinct aspects that seek to separate children from adults. There are special child-related laws, policies, and programs. Customs and rituals have evolved over the years to celebrate events. For example, birth of a child, naming ceremony, attaining of childhood. The role of the family is critical during the growing years of the child. School and the educational process are equally significant and impact children differently. A growing child also requires special nutrition and health care. Friends, peers, play and recreation are other specific needs that are very crucial in a child's life for overall development. Over the years, the concept of child and childhood have been studied through different approaches, perspectives, and social sciences such as anthropology, sociology, psychology, critical geography, law, feminism, Marxist perspective. The concept of childhood is understood and interpreted in different societies and countries, and that also determines the approach towards child, laws, policies and programs. There is also a political context and the role of the state in defining childhood. Thus, we can build our understanding of child and childhood through a variety of approaches. We can choose to focus only on one aspect or a combination of different approaches. I will briefly enumerate some of the approaches. The lifespan approach. From the lifespan approach, childhood too has separate phases: early childhood, middle childhood, and late childhood. Each phase is considered to have distinct priorities, characteristics, and priority areas of growth and development. Among them, the two critical spurts of growth could be considered as the first 2 years of life and then also during the period of adolescence. The psychological viewpoint. Psychologists have been studying child and childhood through different dimensions of the individual, such as formation of the personality, the self of the child, the physical, cognitive, emotional and social development and growth, thinking and processes of the mind, factors that facilitate well-being, development of relationships and the role of the environment in the life of each individual child. The focus is largely on individual behavior, the self and the environment. The biological factors and the process of evolution. Biology and medical science also have focused on areas such as genetic endowments, process of evolution, inherent traits of the individual and its interaction with the environment, chronological process of growth and maturation. Anthropological studies. Anthropology focuses on lived experiences of children, the everyday processes of learning, culture and its impact on the child and how it shapes the child's life. Then we move on to another aspect and approach, a very critical one, and that is education and learning. This is yet another important arena of studying child and childhood and the role of the school and education in shaping the child's intellectual development, general awareness, thoughts, values, morals, attitude and self-confidence. Moving on to the sociological perspective. Sociology emphasizes that social structures, the family and environmental context within which the child is located does have a profound impact on the growing child. Sociological views of childhood and age generally take the view that human beings are the outcome of both nature and social life, and both are interconnected. It is not nature versus nurture or one or the other, rather it is a combination of many of these aspects together. Let's move on to the feminist perspective or the Marxist view of childhood. The feminist perspective explains the societal differences between men and women within the context of gender differences. The feminist perspective also highlights the presence or prevalence of gender inequality, oppression, subjugation, capitalism, patriarchy and subordination, and how it impacts women, how it impacts childhood of boys, girls, children of other sexual orientation, and we really need to become very, very aware of this perspective of understanding child and childhood. Within the Marxist framework, age stratification and how age stratification has become a form or has been a form of social control, one can read more on this and find out. Then you have space and critical geography, the spatial world of the child, the home, the school, playground and other spaces that children occupy is also an important arena in the study of childhood and how it shapes childhood experiences and behavior. Then we move on to a very, very important aspect, and that is child and the legal dimension. Laws have played a very, very important role in defining childhood and giving it a distinct place in society. There are laws which prohibit children from engaging in certain behaviors. So, for example, smoking, drinking, etc. There are other laws that regulate activities of children from the perspective of child protection. For example, a certain age for child marriage, prevention and prohibition of exploitative child labor. Then there are laws that prohibit exploitation, such as laws that prohibit sexual abuse and there is penalty or there is severe punishment for it. There are laws related to trafficking, there are laws related to exploitation, and then there are also laws that reach out to vulnerable children in need of care and protection. So, for example, in the arena of child welfare and juvenile justice. One more important aspect for us to remember and discuss in our discourses on children and childhood is childhood and the political context. Children do not have voting rights and their active political participation starts only after attaining adulthood. Now, does that impact how our laws are framed? Does that impact budgetary allocations? Does that impact whether enough is being done for children or not? Is a point of serious debate and discussion. Then role of the state. So, laws, policies and programs of the state, as I have been emphasizing earlier and discussing earlier, also reflects the state's approach to children and childhood. And lastly and but most importantly, the child's rights framework. Rights of children have been universally accepted. It is expected that each country will ensure fulfillment of child rights, and the four core areas are right to survival, protection, participation and development.